On TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
That is why. Never take it with me. Never.
Welcome to the Talk, live on Talk TV, the home of straight talking. I'm Sharon Osbourne, and we've got loads to get talking about tonight, so let's get straight on with it. Now, I'm here with journalist JJ Anisiobi. Yes, no?
You nailed
Close,
it. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Broadcaster Vanessa Phelps.
Hi.
And Talk TV's Ian Collins and the beautiful columnist Nicola Thorpe.
We start tonight with a scandal at Westminster, as a Conservative MP has allegedly been caught watching porn on his phone in the Commons. Politicians are refusing to name the MP, but the party's investigating the matter. The Chief Whip, which actually sounds like a character in a porn film as far as I'm concerned, says the behaviour is wholly unacceptable and action will be taken. So, should the MP be named and shamed? Let's go straight to that porn expert, Sharon.
Sharon! Oh, no, I hate all that stuff. But anyway, this man, poor man, no, don't name him, don't shame him. They're all at it there, you know that. It's true.
You're not carrying on the Angela Rayner story, are you, please?
Why bother with this poor man? Let him have his fiddling and whatever. Leave him alone.
You think so? You see, I'm just thinking, you know, it's deadly boring there most of the time, let's face it. Deadly, deadly dull. And when Angela Rayner isn't crossing and uncrossing her legs, what else is there to look at? Except for a little bit of porn. I also think, you know, if someone's looking at something on their phone, how do you know they're watching porn? You'd have to really sort of lean over, have a good look, crane your neck and everything else. And really, you know, if you were minding your own business and concentrating on the matters at hand, you wouldn't know they were watching porn, would you? They could be just doing their shopping from Asda, other supermarkets are available, or in something else.
Some, like, porno people like to share it. I've seen it.
Oh, I think sharing
movies.
it is beyond the
They
pale.
just do it like...
Beyond the pale.
If you had to sit through a Keir Starmer speech, I mean, I'd hate to think what I'd be searching when I'm listening to Sir Keir standing there at the dispatch box. Of course, we don't actually know what this guy was looking at. Somebody could have sent him a message. I mean, it could have been... It might have been something from the Daily Sport that looked a bit porn-like as he was sitting there. It could have just been a bikini shot. We don't know whether it was...
Gosh, now you sound as if you're fantasising, actually.
Do you know,
bikini shot, you've got to keep calm. We've got Nicole
But we
Wharton
don't.
for this
I'm not
matter.
absolutely sure this is even real. We've got somebody's word for it, that they saw somebody looking at something.
Could have been holiday snacks.
Supposedly on the front bench.
Nicola, what do you think?
When you look at the culture of misogyny and sexism that is rife throughout Westminster, I'm not surprised that this has happened at all. In fact, JJ, what are you doing?
What on earth?
Let's have a look.
Gosh, that's it. We are Don't show Sharon that, please.
And Talk TV is not boring at all. Of course, these are MPs that are being paid with taxpayers' money. They should not be watching porn at work, especially if they're a front bencher. If you want to watch pornography, sit at the back of the room.
But they haven't done anything actually wrong.
They
know,
have.
look, it's not ideal to watch porn at work, as we just...
In the House of Commons, JJ.
But yeah, it's not ideal.
Do it in the toilet.
I like the ones where there's a story, the man comes to mend the carburettor, that one. That's a really good one. That's one of my favourites. That's from the 70s.
That's a
You love
repeat.
that. That's a lovely...
Vanessa.
No, that's the best one.
Around a third of
Yeah.
people admit to watching porn while working. 5% of Brits admit to using work devices to watch porn. That's 3 million workers, give or take. So we're all at it.
But is that because everyone's working at home at the moment?
No.
Who on earth would watch pornography at work? I mean, I'm with you, Sharon. I'm very anti-porn.
Me
I
too.
understand people do it for enjoyment, to get their kicks or whatever. I think it's... The treatment of women in porn in particular is horrendous, and there's no guarantee of the age of the performers, etc., depending on what sites you're watching it on. So I'd like to know a little bit more detail about what kind of pornography he was watching as well. It was obviously enough to get people talking.
But you can't... I mean, the idea that you would... I mean, how stupid would you have to be in a very litigious world, in a world where everything's being monitored, whether it's your search history, you know, lots of workplaces now will do regular checks on the kind of things you've been looking at. I mean, you'd have to be the north end of absolutely stupid to start surfing the internet
house is full of
for
them.
nudity and pornography.
Agreed.
In the workplace. It's not for the workplace. I mean, JJ says it's pretty harmless, did you say?
Yeah, it's pretty harmless. He's not hurting
think?
anyone.
Well, I'm not sure. The thing is, I'm not sure it's good manners, is it? It may not be illegal. It may not be harming anyone. It may be bored rigid. Let's not use the word rigid in this context. Absolutely not.
Leave
Would
it.
dream of doing it. He might say he would like to hold himself erect and look people in the eye and say he wasn't doing anything he shouldn't have been doing. But is it polite? I mean, is it the kind of courtesy that we
No.
wish to extend to fellow members of Parliament in the House of
Disgraceful.
No,
It
should be-
what
they
kind
should
of
be taking-
manners does it show?
If any of you were watching porn and happened to look over your shoulder right here at this table, I would not judge you.
Oh, bless you. Look,
You would.
Vanessa, to answer your question,
Yes.
look, you might not think that watching porn is very serious in the workplace, but at the moment there are 56 MPs who are facing allegations of sexual harassment
much more serious,
and assault,
yes.
and this is something that we should be, concentrating on. However, a culture in which men are watching pornography at work cannot help that issue.
I mean, I think that's a valid point, Sharon, don't you?
Yes, I do. I hate anything to do with porn.
Good for you.
Nasty, dirty.
Well, I tell you what's coming up, a much more wholesome topic that we can really get thoroughly stuck into, and that is Barbie, because Barbie is about to hit the big screen, and she's going to get the full Hollywood treatment. The question, though, is Barbie a good role model? That's what we're going to be discussing next. This is The Talk, live on Talk TV.
Welcome back to The Talk, live on Talk TV. Now, the first photo from the new Barbie film has been released, showing Margot Robbie as the world's most popular doll. Barbie first appeared in our lives in 1959, and since then, she's been everything from an astronaut to a doctor and even an Olympian. But she's also been criticised as a bad influence for young girls by perpetrating gender stereotypes, being too materialistic, and she's even been accused of causing body image issues by having unrealistic proportions. So, with Barbie about to hit the big screen, is she actually a good role model, Vanessa?
Well, as a Barbie girl in a Barbie world myself, I've modelled myself on Barbie. Diana adores Marilyn Monroe, the whole lot. I adore her. I always have adored her. I think she's fabulous. She can do anything and everything. As you say, she's been an astronaut. She can drive a camper van. She can whiz around in a sports car. She's been a brain surgeon. Now she's all different colours, and she's also all different shapes and sizes. She's very versatile, very thoroughly diverse human being in so many ways. And what nobody ever mentions is she's faithful. She's monogamous. She only ever goes out with Ken and stays in with Ken, doesn't she? So you've never seen Barbie consort with any other gentleman, or lady, actually, or anyone else, in her whole life. Yeah. So I think she's a fabulous example of fidelity, of loyalty. I think she's diligent. I think she turns her hand to a multitude of different activities. And I still aim to be Barbie when I grow up. As soon as I see that film, I'll know exactly how to do it. I can't wait.
Looking forward to seeing the film. I think it will be fun and pretty and whatever for young girls, but I don't think she's terribly good example for girls. You say she's all sizes. She actually now comes in a size 8, which for me is skinny. I think it's skinny. That's not all sizes, is it? I mean, they all look like Kardashians, so it's like they're just voluptuous, beautiful, you know. I just think
and she
that
comes
they
now,
need to...
but she does come in a wheelchair now, doesn't she? She comes in all... I think she comes in...
she?
Yes, and I think there are more voluptuous Barbies. I think they have really changed Barbie from that original strange cartoonish
But why don't
shape.
they do somebody that's not so good looking?
Exactly. Wouldn't we love an ugly Barbie?
I would love it.
Yes. Look, here she is. Look, here she is in a wheelchair.
Oh,
they've had Barbie as an amputee. They've had Barbie in all sorts of
all shapes and sizes.
Look at that little sweet one.
Except ugly. And without makeup. But look, I'm really excited about this film. It's going to be directed by Greta Gerwig. She's a feminist filmmaker. It's also a bit of an indie film, so it's not going to be one of those big Hollywood, big-budget movies. A really exciting cast. And I have my suspicions that Barbie might leave Ken.
Never.
I think that 2022 or 23 Barbie, I think she might go back. She might go back with him, but I think she could leave him.
She might be fluid. We don't know.
Precisely. Gosh. What do you reckon, Ian?
I think, well, actually, firstly, Vanessa is wrong, because Barbie isn't monogamous, because my sister's Barbie dated my action man. So straight away, we have rumbled her shady past.
Gosh, I'm too young for this kind of revelation. I don't know what to do. I'm so horrified.
Can we not just let Barbie be Barbie? I mean, you can talk about the diversity of Barbie. Is there ever a girl anywhere that has said, you know, my life was ruined because I based my life on a plastic doll?
I'm sure there is somewhere.
It never happened, Sharon.
There's loads of women that have, like, fabulous cosmetic surgery to look like Barbie.
Of course, there's a lot of men that have it as well. There's a couple of guys that we see often in the tabloids who've barbied themselves up
the living
for that very purpose. But actually, why can't we just let it be a doll? It's a doll, it's a bit of fun, girls like it, she's beautiful, she looks good, she's got... So what if she's a size 8? It doesn't matter, does it? Do you have to have a big Barbie to appease who?
I think representation really matters, particularly for children.
Nicola, it's a doll, OK?
I know.
It's a plastic doll.
I know, but...
It doesn't matter.
I know, but I think it is so important, particularly for young girls at that age, to see different versions, or to see themselves represented. You know, to see a child, to see a Barbie in a wheelchair would make a huge difference to a little girl who was disabled, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's true, but, like, Vanessa, I love you, but you've got to get a grip, my dear.
In what way?
She's just a doll. She's not a role model. She's not a feminist icon.
Yeah.
What she is the biggest selling doll of all time, and Hollywood are cashing in. I'm sorry,
She's a
a good one. That's it.
Oh, she's
here for the money. That's all she wants.
They'll sue and they'll be right. Don't you dare call Barbie a slut on television. It's not fair. It's not true. No, she's
no matter what you think of her, over 100 dolls of Barbie are sold every minute. with a total of 58 million annually. I'd have thought everyone would have a Barbie by now.
Well, Vanessa's buying them all up. That's the problem.
We used to actually have a Barbie world at home. I've got 2 little girls. Well, I had then. They're grown up now. And we had a whole part of the house dedicated to Barbie.
Oh,
we found it very aspirational and inspirational.
OK, yeah. Well, Mr Potato Head, he's an icon as well. And so G.I. Joe.
Would you be showing your son then, Reuben? He's about to turn 2.
He is,
Would you be showing him Barbie the movie?
No, I won't be. He does have dolls, though. He does play with dolls, yeah.
Girl dolls and boy dolls, Action Man?
Yeah,
or...
a mixture. But he won't be watching this kind of trash. No, I'm afraid not. Sorry, guys.
How about your kids, Sharon? Do they still play with Barbies, or your grandkids?
my grandkids, but I was cleaning out my house over the weekend and I found all my big girls' Barbies, like loads and loads of them, and I sent them pictures and they're like, oh, bring them back.
See?
Want them.
See, it's a lifelong love affair.
They'll be worth a lot
Nothing
now.
wrong with it. One of the most innocent love affairs you'll ever have.
Now, from Barbie to the Bible, the Archbishop of Canterbury has continued his war of words with the government over its plan to send Channel migrants to Rwanda. You'll remember, of course, he called the plan the opposite of the nature of God in his Easter sermon. Boris Johnson hit back, accusing the Archbishop of being less outspoken in his condemnation of President Putin. Today, the Archbishop responded to the Prime Minister, saying the Church of England is not a passive observer of migration policy, but do we think the Church should intervene in politics? And it's rather simple, I think, this one, because the Archbishop of Canterbury, he's the most senior church person in the land. Of course, he would have a say. Of course, he would have a view. And that would be extraordinary if the man that stands there in the mighty Canterbury Cathedral and elsewhere around the globe didn't have a view. But actually, we don't have to listen to him. That's the point, isn't it? He can say whatever he likes. That is his godly right, his ecclesiastical right to have opinions on anything. But the idea that he's a game changer in the debate is a no. He's not elected. He's not one of our elected officials. He's a very bright man. He's a very nice man, I'm sure. No doubt about that. We don't have to listen to the guy.
Yeah, and I think that it's a sign of a good democracy that we have leaders that aren't political.
Yeah, that's true.
Who are speaking out and giving their opinion. Look, the Bible itself is based on a refugee seeking shelter. It's all about love thy neighbour. So I think he was absolutely right to speak out on this. People are saying he wasn't as critical of Putin. Well, I think he was. And also, there's so much conversation about Putin that is happening at the moment. And actually, we should be talking about things that are happening closer to home. I know that certain politicians have criticised him for being so outspoken, but at the end of the day, the government have actually asked church groups to take responsibility for bringing Ukrainian refugees over to this country because the Home Office is doing such a shoddy job of the administration. So, of course, the leader of the church should be able to give his opinion on this matter.
I think so too. I mean, what's he meant to do every week? Tell another Bible story? That's what Sunday school's for, not for adults. So the thing is, of course, he has a right, all these atrocities that are going on in the world. And he's not supposed to comment on things that are going on. Of course he should be. Yeah,
I mean, the church, they can intervene. I think the church and state are not as separate as they should be, probably, But my problem with Justin Welby is that he's been vocal about other conflicts in the world, but not quite as vocal as he has on this. And for me, that feels like, well, you value this problem more importantly than you value this problem over here. And that shouldn't be the case. If you're a true Christian, then it should be help everyone.
Everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He can't speak out on everything, though, and I know that in the article that he wrote today, he actually specifically spoke as well about Christians who were escaping Iran and the fact that he, as the leader of the Church of England, should be able to kind of reach out and offer solace to those people.
I mean, this is one of those situations where it's not OK that he spoke. It would have been shameful and despicable had he not spoken. That is his purpose on earth. His purpose is, as God's representative here as the head of the Church of England, to do what he feels he has to do on a moral basis and on a personal basis, to try to guide and try to inspire and try to prevent atrocities. If he had not spoken, it would be absolutely appalling.
But there
so
was
he's
a
done
sense...
the right thing, not the wrong thing.
But wasn't there a sense, Vanessa, that actually what he was doing was criticising the Conservatives? And he's been accused of this before, that actually this was the Archbishop in political mode, not religious mode. It was a great opportunity to have a pop at Boris Johnson, which on any other day is no bad thing. But he's the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yes, and what does that mean? He's not apolitical, and he doesn't have to be. He's not the Queen.
But that
He's
is-
not a symbolic
shouldn't he
head.
be?
He's an
Shouldn't he be
actual
apolitical?
human. Why should he be? He's a human, living, breathing individual appointed to that august role because he's somebody who's trusted and somebody who's
don't think
respected.
so.
He's not supposed not to have a
What if
political
he's
view.
a communist?
He can be whatever he wants to be, can't he?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think he could be?
No, I mean, what if he's a communist or a white supremacist? I don't want to hear all of that.
Well, I
Yeah.
suppose you wouldn't be going to listen to his sermons. And you don't, as Ian quite rightly says, you can ignore him. He's not in a position where he can inflict any sort of decision-making on anybody. But I think it's absolutely right that he expresses what he thinks.
Well, he's not the first, he won't be the last. I mean, the popes, loads of the popes in the past have spoken on contemporary
And
issues.
lots of them didn't. Lots of them didn't
Yes,
speak
but-
against
but
the
lots of
Holocaust. They
them-
didn't speak against abuse
Vanessa.
in the church in Ireland, for example. The appalling
Yes.
They didn't speak, and you see he's doing the right thing.
Okay.
They should have spoken, shouldn't they? When you say lots of the popes spoke, what about the popes that didn't speak?
You're arguing with me, but I agree
But
with you.
it's a
You don't
shame,
even
isn't
finish
it?
what I was saying. I'm saying that lots of the popes have done this, and this isn't a new thing. That's it.
It's not a new thing, but the point is it's incumbent upon somebody who's supposed to be representing God to say something and not do nothing.
Moving right along.
No, it's vital.
Look, don't you think that it shows that Justin Welby's done the right thing here because we're all having a heated conversation about it, and it's brought the story into the news again, and it will do the next time that he speaks about it.
No, I think he was right. I just don't think that he should take sides politically. That's where I think that draws the line. That's not his gig. His gig is to...
Well, more of that to come, and coming up as councillors in York vote in favour of stripping Prince Andrew of his Freedom of the City honour. Should the public get to vote on royals losing their titles? We're discussing that next. This is The Talk, live on Talk TV.
I like stripping.
This is Talk TV.
Welcome back to The Talk, live on Talk TV. Fresh humiliation has been heaped on Prince Andrew tonight. Quite astounding. I think people might have imagined he'd been humiliated enough, but councillors from the city of York have voted to strip him of his freedom of the city.
It's the greatest honour York can give a person, from residents to dignitaries to Winston Churchill to Judi Dench. It's the greatest honour we can give, and it doesn't feel right that in that company you have somebody with such allegations against their name.
The campaign to remove Prince Andrew's title gathered pace after he made an out-of-court settlement with Virginia Giuffre, who'd accused him of sexual assault. He denies all allegations. Councillors and members of the public who spoke at the meeting also called for the Queen to strip Andrew of the title Duke of York. But instead of leaving it to the Queen, Sharon, do you think the public should get to vote on whether royals keep their titles?
I think they should. I do. In cases like this, not just, you know, everybody that's in the royal family, but I think cases like this. And what is it? He's got a key to the city? Is that what it means?
Well, they've taken it away. It probably means he can lead a few sheep over the bridge and that kind of thing, and have a sandwich with the alderman or something like that. And he can't anymore, so it's a shame he didn't get on with it and do that instead of visiting Jeffrey
Epstein. What has he done for York? They see if you get a name like that, surely you must spend time there and meet the people and, you know, maybe pay for a school or something like that. And so what has he done for York?
Well, when that gentleman said, you know, it's one of the highest privileges we can confer on any individual to show how grateful we are and how we appreciate and approve of them, and we don't want to give it to him, we're taking it away.
Prince Charles has got a home in Wales. He speaks Welsh. She's there all the time. You know, the Sussexes have been there for 6 hours and they've done as much as they can for Sussex, so I understand why they're keeping that title. So,
6 hours.
So if you were to vote yourself, would you say he has to be called just Andrew Windsor? You wouldn't even allow him to be the Duke of York anymore?
Not the Duke. He's a prince. He was born a prince and will die a prince. He is a prince. That should never be taken away from him. But if they took all his others and his medals and his hats and all of that stuff away, why did they keep the Duke of York? And I'm sure he's only been there for 7 hours, maybe. But what has he done for York?
Well, precisely, ruined their reputation, apparently. Look, I would do away with all of their titles. I think it's absolutely bonkers that people would be born into that level of privilege. As you've said, Sharon, he's already a prince. Does he need to be given these other titles on top of that? I think that if we started society from scratch tomorrow, nobody would have titles or that much inherited wealth from birth. I think that we should be living in a meritocracy where somebody, given the title of the Duke of York, is earned. Who do we think could be the next Duke of York, perhaps? Perhaps we should go to a public vote and vote in the next Duke of York.
Isn't that what a democracy is? Haven't we done that with Parliament? Isn't that the government that we elected? Look what we did.
We didn't elect him to become the Duke of York, though, did we?
No, but we elected him to become a Prime Minister. We elect whoever's going to be appointed the Chancellor of the Exchequer and all those august positions. Yeah. And don't you think that, by and large, the royal family have done a far better job than any government's ever managed to do?
Not necessarily. Yes. I would open it up to a non-political figure to take over the role of the Duke of York.
It is. It's extraordinary, isn't it, that the Duke... The more you think about this story, and everything that's happened and all the allegations and the big payout that he's just been forced to make. The idea that, as Sharon says, that he's even called the Duke of York, that is, in itself, bestows an importance and a reverence onto this person. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. And if you go through... I tend to agree with Nicola. If you go through... I mean, Prince Edward, I always had to Wikipedia him the other day to remember who he was, for goodness sake. He's on a big tour of the Caribbean at the moment for some apparent reason. I have no idea what he's doing out there. And if you look at the palace, we know that I think we all agree, you know, the Queen has been an incredibly dignified character. We respect the Queen. It's an extraordinary position we find ourselves in, where we tend to like the monarch, but a lot of the dead wood that's in the palace and around, we don't much care for.
I feel as if I'm
It's so
surrounded by ravening hordes of Republicans
it's so
here.
hard
I
to
love the
justify.
royal family. I
family.
love
I
them.
do.
I love
I do.
Kate. I think she's wonderful. I
She's
love
divine.
William.
She's okay.
Divine. Well, she's okay.
She's all right. I mean,
She's never put a
Divine.
foot
She works
wrong.
very hard.
She's been beautifully raised by Carol Middleton.
But, like-
Always to smile, always to be enthusiastic.
well, that is lovely.
But the thing is, in every family, there's always a couple of black sheep that you try and forget about. So
Apples.
they're human. And so there's going to be the same in their family, and it has throughout history.
But it
you
carries
look at
with
royals
it.
throughout
It carries
history.
with it an immense privilege, though, doesn't it? There's a lot of money and opulence that floats around. I know the work. The calendars are very busy. They're working every day. They're digging little holes for trees and cutting ribbons and all that.
But they also bring
I
a
understand
huge
that.
amount of money into the country. They bring so much tourism into the country.
Well, so does Tyson Fury, in that respect.
Oh,
I mean,
this is
people-
terrible. JJ, deliver us from this evil. Deliver us from these
Ridiculous.
fearful revolutionaries. Quick.
If the
quick.
people of York don't want to have him with that title, that's up to them. But the British public should not get to vote on all royal titles. And I'm sorry, but the British public are fickle. That's why they should not get a say. When Prince Charles was given the title Prince of Wales, people weren't happy. But he spends a lot of time there. He's learned the language. Great. When Princess Diana died, the Queen's popularity plummeted in 97 to 57% of her popularity rating.
Yep.
And now it's up at 75%. Same with Camilla. People couldn't stand her before. Now suddenly everyone's like, what a great woman she is for Prince Charles. This is why we should not be able to vote on who gets those titles.
Yes, quite right. Off with your heads, all of you, quite honestly. I think, can we just book them in a car to the Tower right now? I'm horrified. Nobody told me that I was going to be mixing with this kind
I can only apologise.
It's horrifying. Absolutely.
No, Andrew
I
lives
can't
in the
wait
Tower.
for the
We
Platinum
can't get
Jubilee
there.
and the celebrations and to sob all over the Queen. I just can't wait. I love it. Move on.
Okay. Now,
yes.
it sold more than 120 million copies around the world, and it spawned a blockbuster movie franchise and inspired a generation of loyal fans. But that hasn't stopped a university slapping a trigger warning on Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. The University of Chester alerted freshers to the book's difficult conversations about race, sexuality, class and identity. This has outraged the university's minister, who's now stepped in, calling for common sense, thank goodness. Michelle Donnellan said students shouldn't be protected from a children's story and have to live in the real world. So, Nicola, do we need to police Harry Potter?
Who on earth, firstly, is studying Harry Potter at university? I swear my friends read it. I've never read one, but they came out when I was about 11. I think that's around about the time that children start reading Harry Potter. Look, so I don't know what's in it. They claim that there's the difficult conversations about sexuality and race, etc. But obviously it's aimed towards 11-year-olds. I'm sure that people who are in their 20s can cope with that. But I'm not against trigger warnings on novels. I think that often, students, unbeknownst to them, they can start reading a book or studying a book that could have scenes of graphic sexual violence or even like the death of a parent. Now, if you've just lost a parent and you're about to start a module whereby you're reading every single day about somebody losing their mum or their dad, it would be nice to have a bit of a heads up before you go into it to kind of have a bit of warning. But I'm not quite sure what is contained in Harry Potter that would need to have a trigger warning for 21-year-olds.
Yeah, look, if you're at university and you need a trigger warning for Harry Potter, you don't deserve to be at university, as far as I'm concerned. Get back to year 9. And who doesn't know that Harry Potter's an orphan? It's a sad tale that you weave there, but we all know Harry Potter's an orphan. That's just basic
And
knowledge.
he used to live under the stairs.
Oh.
There we go.
And I think it's quite ridiculous that this is going on. I mean, there's millions of kids all around the world that, grew up on all of these books. And it's just ridiculous. It's like, when is it all going to stop? It's just enough.
Well, I'd just like to say I actually feel genuinely very strongly about this. I read English literature at Cambridge, and as far as I'm concerned, what is the purpose of a book or a play or a poem if it doesn't trigger? That's what literature is for. It's meant to evoke in you some kind of emotion, some kind of tumult, some kind of feeling. If it evokes nothing, if it triggers nothing, what's the point? Might as well read a blank card or a cereal packet. That's what literature is for. And children's literature is no different. You don't need a warning to tell you it's going to trigger you. If it's worth reading, if it was well written, it will trigger all kinds of emotions. And you can't possibly be warned of them in advance. It's not a kind of dangerous packet of cigarettes that you have to read the ingredients before you've read the wretched book. Read the book.
But
See what's triggered. That's the
thing is,
point.
if there's a warning, kids are going to read it like
Yes,
that.
it'll be very attractive,
But
isn't it?
as Nicola said, I mean, why would... I mean, the whole adults reading Harry Potter thing, I mean, that was always a bit extra. I mean, you don't see adults on the tube reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Chicken Licking, do you? That would just be very, very weird. You'd look at that and think, what the heck is going on with him over there? That would be strange. And as JJ said, if you are at university reading Harry Potter, you should be kicked out of university for crimes of idiocy. It's a basic fact of life. The wider issue is who judges the judges? Who is this sort of arbitrary set of authors they've decided? Two of the best books ever written, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Orwell's 1984,
Exceedingly triggering,
They're
and that's the
absolutely
whole
triggering in
point.
every respect. They are absolutely terrifying.
Yes.
They tick all the boxes that would trigger Nicola, and my goodness, there's a shed load of things on that list, and nobody would be arguing they should be taken off the reading list, or perhaps
And
somebody
also,
somewhere...
you know, if you're an undergraduate
might
at
be.
university, the entire purpose of being there is to be triggered. You know, you arrive
That's the
naive,
point.
inexperienced, with views that you formed at school. You're meant to be triggered out of that into the adult that you're going to become at some point. That's what you're there for. Not to have a placid, charming, kind of Emmerdale-type existence. That's absurd.
I think we can all agree we have all been triggered
Thoroughly
here at this
triggered.
table by this story, and perhaps we should have come with a trigger warning ourselves tonight.
No, I said we should all sit here with wizard hats on.
Well, I don't find the
I'm up
problem.
for that.
I don't find the problem with actually the trigger warning if it's for kids, but this trigger warning is for university students, and that is what I think is completely ludicrous.
It's
Absolutely.
nonsense.
This book may contain wizards.
Yeah.
Is that where it's taken us to?
Well, that is not the only kids' classic that's come under fire. The Biff, Chip and Kipper story, The Blue Eye, has been accused of Islamophobia. The tale sees the trio transported to a Middle Eastern-looking market. In the book, the Muslim characters are described as dangerous, unfriendly and scary. Oxford University Press has apologised and pulled the book from shelves. But were they right to do so, Nicola?
Yeah, I think they were. Look, I don't think the whole series hasn't been pulled. It's just this particular story. I don't know if you saw on the picture there. This was a very poor taste representation of Muslim characters in a children's book. And that really can affect people. It can affect, like, a country's even interpretation of that kind of culture if children are reading this from a young age. I don't know if you remember the film Aladdin, the mythical land of Agrabah. 30% of American Republicans said they would agree to bombing Agrabah if it was an option. It was a made-up land. So, obviously, Islamophobia and xenophobia of the Middle East and South East can be seen in children's books like this. I loved these books as a kid, but looking back, yes, I was fearful of these characters for no reason other than the author said these were scary men based on their appearance.
But this is a classic. Other than Nicola, I don't think anyone exists that's ever been triggered by the Biff and... What they called? Biff, Chip and
Kipper.
Bodger, whatever it is. That one.
Never heard of them in my life. Never.
I think I've actually read them to my kids at some point. Look, the book is not about it's not racism. It's about kids being overwhelmed in a marketplace. They happen to be in the Middle East. That happens to be the location. And so there they are, lots of adults around. There's a lot of noise. It's the old bazaar in Cairo kind of thing. This is all going on. The kids are a bit freaked out by this, so that's why they feel a bit uneasy. It's nothing to do with the fact these might be Muslims. It's nothing to do with the fact there might be non-white people. It's just the fact it's kids in an adult surrounding.
But they do go on loads of adventures, and this was the one book that stood out where they were actually scared of strangers.
Only because somebody said that this is happening, so they've had to withdraw it now because somebody said, oh, look, this could be interpreted as... But no one prior to that ever interpreted it in that kind of way. It's just about kids being frightened. One of their many adventures.
I keep wondering when they're going to ask Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice to rewrite that line about a hairy bunch of Ishmaelites. They might say, no, that's not, why are they hairy? Why are they scary? That's not appropriate. That's kind of casual, maybe subconscious racism, just like this illustration. I don't think there was evil intent, do you, when they illustrated that nice, jolly children's book? However, careless, thoughtless, arguably harmful, and possibly a good thing to get rid of it, I would have thought.
Sharon, you've seen
Pulp the whole lot of them.
Again, you could go through every back catalogue and make the same accusation. It's just an absolute nonsense.
Well, they have. Whoever they are.
Well, whoever they are will not be policing us.
Yeah.
Coming up, work hard, play hard, but can you have fun at both? A boss has divided opinion by telling his staff that work is a fun-free zone. Sounds like our bus. What do you think? That's next. This is The Talk, live on Talk TV.
Welcome back to The Talk, live on Talk TV. Now, here's a question you don't hear very often. Do you have a therapist? Well, according to that self-appointed mental health expert, Prince Harry, we need more of them. He's been speaking on a podcast and said there's a big difference in attitudes towards therapy here in the UK and that of his adopted home of America. Take a listen.
You're absolutely right. Read about the cultural differences. They're immense. You know, you talk about here in California, I'll get my therapist to call your therapist. Whereas in the UK, it's like, therapist? What therapist? Whose therapist? I don't have a therapist. No, I've never spoken to a therapist.
There he is, Prince Harry, sorry. Sharon, you've got experience of both countries. Do we need more over here?
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. I think for everyone, there comes a time in their life when something becomes too much, overbearing, whatever it is, a relationship, a health problem, just, you know, living in the world is hard enough. And I think there should be more therapists in this country, and especially for kids. What about so many kids now are anorexic or bulimic, all of those things. It's endless. But for him to say in California everybody has a therapist, they do. Of course they do, because they get it on their insurance. And everybody has to have insurance.
Because you've got it.
Well, you don't have to use it, But everybody does use it. I mean, I went to therapy for 9 months after I got let go from my job in America, for 9 months. And I literally didn't go. The only place I ever went for 3 months was to the therapist, wouldn't go out. So, yeah, everybody at some time in their life, and especially after lockdown, more people need a therapist here.
So how hard would that have been if you didn't have the therapist? Would you have got through that same period without?
I don't think so, no. I didn't think so, because all I could think of was that everything I've done in my life, and this is the end, and this is how people are going to remember me as, and that's what they're going to remember me as, being called a racist.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was like devastating to me and my family.
How did the therapist help you through? What did the therapist say or advise you, or how did it work?
It worked. I went on a treatment called ketamine treatment, and I was given ketamine 3 times a week at a session with the therapist where there is, he has to be medically trained to do this. And what it does is it makes you want to talk. It puts you in a place where you're in comfort, you're not nervous, you're not embarrassed about what you want to say, and it puts you in a place of complete calm. And so he will talk to you and you answer. And it's the truth drug, they call it, because you can't lie on it.
Were you
It just
surprised by
comes
what
out.
you said?
Some of the times I couldn't remember, but they recorded and they played it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was amazing things that were coming up from, 100 years ago. But I honestly believe that if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be sat here today. Because I've always had a terrible, terrible depression problem. I mean, I've tried to top myself so many times. I've given up trying. But it's like I've had a problem mentally for probably since I was a child.
Vanessa, do you think we need more in the UK?
Well, I think Prince Harry is insulting absolutely everyone. My daughter is a child therapist, and she is one of the people working very hard to combat all of the damage that's been done to little children in lockdown, which is exactly what you were talking about. The problem here is that mental health is what's known in this country as the Cinderella service. So there's very little money invested in it, and therefore, when you get a little child or an adult of any age who's suffering with mental health problems and issues, you might refer them to the GP. The GP then might try to refer them on, and there are just hardly any services. It's so depleted. There are these very long waiting lists. So, yes, I think we'd all benefit from a therapist. I know I would. It doesn't harm, let's put it that way. It definitely helps, and we all have crises, but there just aren't the resources available, which is heartbreaking.
But look at all the homeless people that there are that are schizophrenic.
Yes, quite.
And then they don't stand a hope in hell's chance of ever getting better.
Yeah,
So-
you can't see a doctor if you don't have a home to register a GP. Thank you for what you said, Sharon. I've felt quite emotional listening to it, because I had an attempt on my own life in 2012, and it was therapy that saved me. And I wish that I hadn't waited until
So
the point
long.
of attempting suicide to do it. But I think it was part of this kind of put on a brave face, the show must go on, don't talk about what's going on, that led me to that point. And I've seen a therapist since. They're amazing. About a year ago, I had to stop because I couldn't afford it anymore. And I didn't want to start on a cheaper therapist because I'd have to
Do it all again.
But I'm sure there will come a point where I'm ready to kind of go through it again. But I just think it's a shame, because it's all well and good Prince Harry saying everyone should have therapy. Only people who can afford it.
And when he does that thing about here in California, you miss baby. Hey, baby, here in California. It's like, oh, behave. But it's something that I've never really been afraid to talk about or embarrassed, because if I can talk about it, even if there's one person that can get something from it.
Yeah.
Is there still, JJ, is there still a stigma, do you think, attached to this?
Yeah, definitely. Part of our problem with the British culture is the stiff upper lip, which is fine in some circumstances, but when you need help, you should be able to feel you can say you need help. I see a therapist. It helps me massively. But like 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem at some point in their life. And yet 1 in 6 people report experiencing a common mental health problem like anxiety and depression in any given week in England. But if we if everyone felt we could speak more openly without being judged, then that
Isn't one of the problems, and I mean, Sharon, you've articulated, incredibly and very powerful your own story, and Nicola similarly, but of course there's another issue here, Vanessa, isn't there? And that is the sort of overdiagnosis, if you like. There is such a thing as feeling a bit rubbish in life, and part of the human condition are the ups and downs. You might have a bad day, and this fine line between trying to identify what is a very serious issue and clearly needs some help, and somebody who's just having a bit of an off moment.
I think one of the worrying phrases is, you shouldn't have to feel like this. You shouldn't have to feel this way. Well, actually, life throws all sorts of horrible curveballs, and sometimes you should have to feel awful because an awful thing's just happened to you.
It's like heartbreak.
Yes, exactly.
Everybody must experience heartbreak. It's a part of life. And that otherwise you don't appreciate when you do fall in love with the right person and there's no heartbreak.
Disappointment, rejection, and bereavement, and all kinds of
We need to learn
horrible
resilience, don't we? Mental resilience. We can't just say, no, this bad thing will never happen to me. It needs to be able to happen happen to you, and you need to be able to...
It's learning about life. That's what it is. But Ian, what you're saying is, people get bad days, but there are also people that can't get up in the day.
Yeah, true.
Cannot get up. They can't wash, can't clean their teeth, they don't want to talk to anybody, see anybody, stay in a dark room day after day after day. So,
all the help they can get. I feel very privileged, actually, to be here in such an honest conversation. I think you've been incredible, both of you, and I'm really, really pleased to be here and listening to this. I feel very, I feel as if, gosh, I'm learning all sorts of things. If you yourself, though, were suffering with mental health issues, please do go and see your GP. That's always the first port of call. Now, let's move on to the short and sharp debates from our panel. It is time for a little bit of small talk. And I've got the first one right here. This is about a boss who has divided opinion by putting up a sign in the workplace telling employees work is not meant to be fun. The blunt sign reminded staff not to dedicate work time to discussion of non-work topics. It went on, do not facilitate friendships during work hours. The boss signed off with the message, work is not your daycare. So is he right?
Got a point, hasn't he? A little
Do you
bit
think
of
he's
a
got
point.
a point?
A little bit of a point. I mean, he's obviously a miserable old git. We can establish that much. But there is a point. You are at work. You're not there for fun and entertainment. You're there to work.
Absolutely. You've got to go to work to get some cash. We're privileged enough to enjoy our jobs, so
we have fun.
Yeah.
You do have fun here, Ian. You do.
Seriously, though, I think that all of us are blessed doing what we do.
True.
Because I know everybody here loves doing what they do.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing. But, you can imagine people that go into work every day because they have to feed their family, whatever. You have to work, and you really hate your job. You don't get on with the people that you work with. I mean...
But if a job is repetitive and boring, a right drudge, camaraderie, fun with your mates, having a laugh, that can make it
exactly
bearable.
I worked for years in hospitality and retail and restaurants, and I would not have got through that job if it wasn't for my friends.
JJ, what have you got for us?
So Harry Styles has opened up about the outdated expectations he feels from those who want him to publicly declare his sexuality. In an interview, he said, "I've been really open with it with my friends, but that's my personal experience. It's mine." I mean, look, should people have to declare their sexuality? Maybe not, but if you're a pop star, yeah, perhaps. If fans are interested in it. Yeah. And if Harry didn't want to talk about his sexuality, just comment and say, no comments. By saying, I'm not going to talk about sexuality, I shouldn't have to put a label on it, that's the same as basically saying, oh, I'm straight, I'm bisexual, I'm
Does anybody care?
Yeah, people want to know. His
I
fans
think people want to
know.
know whether or not they've got a chance with him, but it's not based on his sexuality.
Maybe he doesn't know yet.
Oh, he knows.
Maybe he's working it out.
He told his friends that he knows, but he wants to keep this mystique. That's what I presume.
But the video they're playing now.
Do you think he should have to declare his hand or foot or whatever it is?
I thought that was from the Undateables. Maybe it wasn't.
I don't think it's anybody's business if you don't want to discuss what you are, but if you throw out these little things, then it's
nuggets.
like, yes. And then people will think, fans of his will think, well, what's behind it? Is he this? Is he that? So
that's just the
get
music industry PR, Sharon, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yes.
Sharon, what have you got going on? This is a dog topic, isn't it, that you're interested in?
Yes. This is about people who are stealing dogs that are expensive dogs, special breeds. You know, the big dogs that they go for now are like the French bulldogs, Chihuahuas, all of those sort of dogs that do cost thousands of pounds to buy. So the thing is, should people not have pedigree dogs, or should they just have rescues? I have both.
Who
You have
nick a
both.
Chihuahua?
How do your rescues mix with your pedigree dogs? Do they love each other?
They love each other. They love each other. But there's nothing like a good old rescue dog. And I always feel that they know they're being rescued and they're more loving. You know, they are.
They're
they
grateful.
Just know.
Well, they've been through it, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've seen the dark side of life.
But it's amazing to me now. People are, you know, gangs are stealing dogs. It's like holding a child
I know that
hostage.
we have a strange relationship, don't we, between, you know, crimes against humans, crimes against animals. There's something about you've got to be lower than a drop curb, haven't you, to start nicking somebody's family pet.
It's
Yeah.
shocking.
I mean,
I agree with
It's
you,
horrendous.
Varian.
Horrendous.
Absolutely.
Let's ask Nicola, what does it take to be a national treasure?
Well, I think we've got at least 2 on the table with us tonight. But 100 national treasures have been asked to ride alongside the Queen in her Jubilee procession in open-top buses, each of the buses representing a decade of Her Majesty's reign. So we've got Gary Lineker, Anton Deck, Ed Sheeran, Basil Brush. Where are the women? So what makes a national treasure, Ian?
J.K. Rowling is a national treasure and hasn't
Yes.
been included
Yes.
in that list. The world's greatest living author for children's books is not on the bus.
How about the world's greatest
That's an
ever
injustice.
band manager? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mrs.
yeah.
O.
Oh.
Motorhead,
There she is.
Black Sabbath, Smashing Pumpkins.
Not a bad idea at all. What about Joanna Lumley, for heaven's sake?
Fair
Oh,
point.
definitely.
Oh, Joanna.
What about
Lumley.
Dawn French?
Yes.
Oh, she's a
exactly.
national
And
treasure.
Jennifer Saunders.
And what about Jennifer Saunders?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not short of a list, are we, really?
We're not sure, but let's get Mrs. O on there first.
Oh,
OK, I vote for Sharon every day of the week, 100%. Well, that's all we've got time for tonight. Thanks so much to our panellists, Sharon Osbourne, JG Anisiobi, Ian Collins and Nicola Thorpe. The talk's back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, live on Talk TV. Have a good night.